Hello, welcome to a asynchronous session of recipe costing conversion. This is going to help you with your final meal project that you have due at the end of the semester. And also it will help you moving forward when you have to do any calculations that has to do with food cost and also recipe conversion and menu planning. First, I want to give you a few context of some things such as definition of food production. So food production is basically the process of transformation of raw ingredients into edible food products. Basically, everything is processed once we start either cutting, blending, mixing, um, and so the word processed foods is really a term that we should use when we are converting food products into using for food service, home cooking, or any type of, or making a recipe, for example. Now, it is commonly used as processed foods, anything that we buy on the store, but um, it's more accurate to say that those are overly processed or ultra processed foods when we buy them already, like instant foods or flours, or anything that has been already processed for a long-term shelf life. So when you go into a food service facility, that being a food service in a hospital, food service in a large facility where, let's say, food, where they pack foods for distribution, or plants where they meal foods, um, the food service directors, as well as the dietitians and dietetic techs, are the ones who are in charge of planning the meals and cycle menus for the clients or the patients. As you might know, if you get your registered dietitian license, you might be able to also work in any food service field that is out there. Uh, Many food companies, large food companies, whether they are organic or not, or mainstream, they utilize dietitians to help them make the recipes healthier, and also to help them make cuts on the recipe so they can be more cost effective. And then the same when it comes to institutions, cut waste, or even stick to a budget. So remember that any institution is a business. So if you are going to be in charge of any food service, um, you're gonna have to keep your food costs low, and also your meals need to be adjusted to the customers or patients' need. They need to taste good. They also need to look good, and at the same time, they need to be cost effective, as I mentioned before. Managers, like if you are managing a food service facility, or even if you are the dietetic director on any hospital, um, or a rehab home, or uh, a house that has old people in it, you are going to have to learn how to order food according to specifications also. You know, number 10 can of tomatoes is not the same of a 12-ounce can of tomato. And if you are not specific enough, they are going to send you food service cans. Let's say if you are running a food pantry and you want just individual cans to distribute to your clients, if you are not specific enough, you're gonna get a number 10 cans, which is the industrial cans, and you're not gonna be able to do much with that. And also, you know, you need to also keep an eye on the right quantities needed to fill the inventory needs. So the cost of the ingredients that go into making a menu item or your dish, also in serving it or putting it up for sale is depends a lot on food cost. The cost of the items that need also know for the preparation, like sauces or even salads, also need to be accounted for. Like, for example, if you're going to serve in your hospital cafeteria, you're going to serve soft drinks. You are going to know how many ounces, if it's better to buy 12-ounce cans or bottles versus 6-ounce cans or bottles, and what is more cost effective to avoid waste. So food cost is basically done in two ways. Theoretical food cost, which is an individual portion for each menu item, meaning, let's say, a filet mignon with potatoes and mixed vegetables. That would be, you need to know how much each item in that dish costs. And the overall food cost percentage is based on the monthly cost of food compared to your budget or how much money you're getting per dish. But that is a class or a topic for definitely another class. But right now we are just going to concentrate on costing food, theoretical food cost, which is the individual portion or dishes for each menu item. First, I want to show you a slide on volume conversions, right? 3 teaspoons is going to be equal to 1 tablespoon. Why is that important? Because you will be able to save time by just seeing in a recipe that maybe you have 9 teaspoons in a recipe. So immediately, right, you are going to take, instead of sitting there and taking 9 teaspoons, you know, by now you will know that 3 tablespoons will be equal to the same amount. At the same time, if you convert ounces to teaspoons and you have 12 teaspoons in your recipe, you might want to be converting that into a larger measure, which is a 1 tablespoon, to make the person who's going to be prepping the recipe make it easier for them, right? Let's say that you are the director of food services and you have you know, about the staff in the kitchen. That will save time, right? And that will also save money. The same thing if you have 16 tablespoons and you know that it's equal to 1 cup, it's easier to measure a cup of something than 16 tablespoons. So that is also, you know, another important factor of why it is convenient to actually know all these measures, right? Volume conversions are important. Um, like, you know, 1 cup to 8 ounces, and 4 quarts is equal to 228 ounces, and so on. And 2 quarts, if you can see this, consequently, 4 cups, it will be equal to 1 quart. And 1 gallon, it will be equal to 16 cups or 4 quarts. Okay, now let's talk about recipe conversion factor, the recipe conversion factor is what you will find to convert a recipe. So to find the appropriate conversion factor to adjust the recipe, what you will have to do is to see what the yield is of the recipe that you need to be adjusted. Then after you find the yield of the recipe that needs to be that you have originally, you will figure out how many portions you want to yield for your the amount of guests or the amount of portions that you want to come up with. So let's say that you will you want to do 20 portions and you have a recipe that gives you 10. What you will have to do is divide the new yield, which is what you want to result, right? What is the portions that you need for your that you need to end up with, and divide it into the yield of the recipe. And that will give you a number. That number is your conversion factor. Let me show you in a better way. So let's say that you have a recipe that produces 25 portions, right? But you want to use the same recipe, but you want to make it into 60 portions. Your recipe yield will be 25 portions, right? That's how the original recipe was written. But you have a party where you want to make 60 portions for your guests. So your conversion factor will be the required yield, which is 60 portions, and you will have to divide that into 25 portions. So 60 into 25 will be equal to 2.4. That will be your conversion factor. What do you do with that number? So now you're going to multiply every ingredient or every amount of the ingredient on the recipe, original recipe, and multiply it by 2.4 in order to get you a 60 portion yield. Right? Let's apply it here. I have a recipe for muffins that yield 50 muffins, and I only want to make 24. That would be, in the example before, we were making it higher in volume, and now we want to reduce the volume, right? Reduce the amount of portions that we want to make. Okay, so the recipe that I have yields 50 muffins, and I only want to make 24. Right? And the recipe calls for 25 cups of flour, 30 eggs, 8 cups of milk, and 7 cups of sugar. Right? That will give me 50 muffins. But remember, I only want to make 24. So first, I need to calculate the conversion factor. So using the formula that I gave you before, 24, right, which is the amount of muffins that I need, into 50, which is the amount of muffins that the original recipe will yield. That will give me a conversion factor of 0.48. Then what I will do is that the ingredients that I have here, 25 cups of flour, 30 eggs, 8 cups of milk, and 7 cups of sugar, I will have to multiply that by 0.48. So in the example of the flour, 25 cups of flour times 0.48 gives me 12 cups of flour. 30 eggs, times 0.48 will be equal to 14.4 eggs. Obviously, I cannot take half of egg and put it in there. So in this case, what you should do is approximate, right? Either do just 14 eggs or do 15 eggs. But using your common sense, right? A 15 eggs will be probably too wet if you add an extra egg. So I will just keep it low to 14. 8 cups of milk gives me equals to 3.84 when I multiply it by 0.48, right? So in this case, 3.84 of a cup would be equal to 3 cups and about 7 ounces. 8 ounces is a cup, so 0.84 will be close to 7 ounces. 7 cups of sugar times 0.48 will give me a result of 3.36 cups, which 3 cups and 0.36 is about 3 ounces. Okay. So that is exactly how you would use the conversion factor. Now, when you are calculating the cost of a dish, right? Let's say I have a filet mignon. I want to cost a filet mignon with a chimichurri marinade and a red wine demi-glace with roasted potatoes and spinach. And my portion for the filet mignon is 8 ounces. The filet mignon cost me $30 a pound. So that means that a pound is 16 ounces and each portion is 8 ounces. So I'm gonna get 2 portions out of each pound. So that means that each portion of filet mignon is gonna cost me about $15. Chimichurri marinade, I'm gonna need 4 ounces per portion. I estimate that. And I paid $6 a quart, or it cost me $6 a quart to make homemade chimichurri, right? So if $6 a quart, right? How many ounces in a quart? All right, it's going to be 32 ounces. That means that if I need 4 ounces for each portion, the 8 is going to give me, the 8 is going to be how many portions I'm going to get out of each quart. So my cost per portion is going to be 0.75. Saute spinach. I'm only going to need 4 ounces of spinach for the plate, but it cost me $5 a pound. So on 1 pound is 16 ounces. So out of each pound, I'm going to get 4 portions. 5 into 4 is $1.25. Roasted potatoes. I'm going to need only 3 ounces for the plate, and I pay $3 per pound. So the amount of portions that I'm going to get per pound is going to be 5.33 per pound. 5 portions, 5.33 0.33 portions per pound. So that means that each portion is going to cost 0.56 or 56 cents. Red wine demi-glace, same thing. 2 ounces is all I need for the plate. And I pay $9 a quart. And again, in 1 quart, I'm going to get 16 portions, and that cost me 56 cents. After the cost, or each component of the plate, I add that up, and the total cost for that plate is going to be $18.12. Okay, there is always a advantage of buying in bulk. when you buy ingredients in large amounts, you pay less money. That's usually cost less per pound. If you buy a 50-pound bag of flour or rice, than if you buy 1 pound of flour or rice once a week. Remember that you can always save more money buying by the bulk. So how do we calculate that? 50 pounds of flour, let's say that cost me $25. And when I want to make a recipe for muffins that will need 4 ounces of flour, what would the cost of flour per muffin? So if a 50-pound bag costs me $25 and I only need 4 ounces per muffin, right? 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces and 50 pounds is equal to 800 ounces. So I will have 800 ounces of those 50 pounds of butter. I mean, of flour, I'm sorry. If I divide $25 into 800 ounces, it will give me equal to 0.03 cents per ounce. And I am going to use 4 ounces per muffin. That it would be equal of to 0.125, 0.125, and approximating that, it would be equal to 0.13, which it would be how much each muffin, the amount of flour will cost. So you can compute the cost of a unit used in recipes such as a cup or quart by dividing the total container amount by the number of units. But they also remember that they must be in the same type of units, volume to volume and weight to weight. What is that supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean that if you have ounces in volume, and then you want to cost ounces in weight, you're gonna have to transfer those units into equal units, right? Like let's say 3 ounces of milk are not gonna be the same as 3 ounces of flour, because flour is weight and milk is volume. So be careful with that. Also, make sure that you're always just making that transformation into equal units. So and always remember that you have to find the total units that you need for a recipe in a container of or product, right? So you always make sure that how many, if you buy a container of olive oil, make sure that you know how much oil is in that container, because it varies. Some might have 32 ounces, some might have 1 gallon, some might have 16 ounces. So make sure that you know exactly the amount of oil that you are buying, or the amount of the quantity or the volume that is in that container, the volume or the weight. Right? So one example, if you have a recipe that asks for 1 cup of oil, how many times can you make that recipe? So you have 1 gallon, which is equal to 4 quarts. 1 quart is equal to 4 cups. 4 quarts is equal to, 4 quarts times 4 cups is equal to 16 cups. So each recipe will ask for 1 cup of oil. Let's pretend that that's the case. You will be able to make that recipe 16 times with 1 gallon of oil. Weighing. Use measurement equivalents, volume to volume or weight to weight. I'm going to repeat that because a lot of times, many of us make that mistake, right? Remember that a cup in ounces are volume, fluid, not weight in ounces. So don't assume that because a cup is 8 ounces, is a cup of oil is 8 ounces. When you come to flour, and it tells you put 8 ounces of flour, don't take that same measurement and put flour in it, because it's not going to be the same. Because when they are telling you to add 8 ounces of flour, they're referring to weight and not volume. Okay. And that's just another example, right, of some equivalent that for you guys to have some reference point. Converting measurements. So a jar of ground cinnamon contains 2 ounces in weight, but the recipe requires 1 teaspoon. So the weight of 1 teaspoon is generally 4 grams. Okay. So if the jar contains 2 ounces, 2 ounces is equal to 56 grams. So that means that the jar contains 14 teaspoons. So that you divide 56 into 4, you have 14 teaspoons in that jar. How do I find that out? Well, simply, you can Google that, how many grams is 1 ounce, or you can also Google how many ounces, or how many ounces in weight is 1 cup of flour, and most likely will tell you. Otherwise, you can also just take 1 cup of flour, take a scale, and put a little ball on top of the scale, tear off that weight, right? Because you don't want to add the weight of the little ball. And then once the scale is down to 0, then put the cup of flour inside that ball and weigh it. And that way you will exactly know how much a cup of flour is in ounces weight. So another example, right? If a box of grated Parmesan cheese contains 16 ounces and your recipe requires 1 cup, you need to measure the cup and then weigh it, right? So let's say that 1 cup volume of Parmesan cheese weighs 5 ounces weight, then the box holds 3.2 cups of volume. Why? Because you have 16 ounces in that box of grated Parmesan cheese and 1 cup volume. I take the cup, I put it as same as I mentioned before, a little ball on top of the scale, check off the weight, then put your cup of Parmesan cheese inside the bowl, and the weight is going to be 5 ounces. So that means that out of 1 container of 16 ounce 16 ounce box of grated Parmesan, you're going to obtain 3 cups and a little bit more, so 3.2 cups of volume. Okay, now let's talk about number of servings per total weight. When you need to calculate how much raw product you will need to cover your number of portions. So you want to serve 6 ounces of salmon, and let's say you have 15 guests, right? 6 ounces times 15 equals 90 ounces, which divided into 16 ounces, which 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound, you will have 5.62 pounds, which is what you will need to feed 15 guests. But this is another thing, right? Always add about 30%, because you are going to lose some weight on the cooking process, right? So in order to play safe, you want to add about 30% of what you calculated, because after you bake it, or you saute or you sear it, that salmon is going to lose moisture, it's going to lose water, it's going to lose it's going to shrink to a cooked portion. So about 30% generally, as a rule of thumb, that's what is lost in the cooking process. So you might want to add 30% to what you need, what you're are calculating as the amount of raw product that you need. So in this case, what I did is that, yes, I need 5.62 pounds to feed 15 guests, but I added 30%. So 5.62 times 0.30 is equal to 1.62, which I added to the original weight, 5.62. I'm sorry, 1.69 plus 5.62. It gave me 7.3 pounds, about 7 pounds. And that is what I need to purchase raw, right? And that way you won't be buying exactly the 5.62 pounds and then realize that you don't have enough for all your 15 guests. Now, costing ingredients. After you calculate the cost of each ingredient amount for the recipe, add all the costs to get a total cost for the recipe. Right? Like flour, 15 cents for 2 1/3 cups. Butter, 2.25 for a quarter cup. The total cost is $1.40 for if you're making pie crust. So, continuing, portion cost. The total recipe cost can be divided by the number of portions that the recipe yields to get the cost per serving, right? So the pie crust, $1.40 for all the ingredients. And the pie is cut into 6 pieces. So your pie crust per portion will be 23 cents. So now let's talk about recipe cost. So the recipe cost will be used to determine the cost of a standardized recipe. The standardized recipe is the recipe that you will use for your final project, which is basically any recipe that you find out there that you already modified, you already did your conversion cost, right? The conversion factor, I'm sorry, that we already spoke about. And you already did your calculations, and now you find a recipe, let's say that was for 50 people, but you only need to serve 4, right? 4 people for your final project. So again, what you're gonna do is divide 4 into 50, and that will give you your conversion factor. And now you already, at this point, you already figured out all the ingredients. You converted all your ingredients. You multiply all the amount of the original recipe, amount of ingredients, times your conversion factor, and now you have a new measurement of ingredients. So that would be your standardized recipe. Now you're going to create a table, which I'm going to show you in a couple of slides, with the list of ingredients, with price per amount of ingredients. And then once you add it all together, by the recipe yield will be equal your price per portion once you divide it by the number of portions. All right, one example. Recipe cost, scrambled eggs for 12 clients. So for 12 clients, probably you want to use about 18 eggs, and each dozen of eggs costs you $1.50. I know that's like 1980 prices, but that's what we're gonna go with. $1.50 divided into 12 gives me about a price of like 0.125 per egg. Of course, a dozen of eggs right now is up to like $5 and not $1.50. So anyway, don't want to confuse you. So let's say that each egg is going to cost me 12 cents, right? About 0.125 cents. And I want to use 18 eggs. 18 eggs times 0.125 cents is equal to $2.25 for 18 eggs. A quart of milk at $4 a gallon, which again, you should know by now that 1 gallon is equal to 16 cups, right? We will divide $4 into 16, right? And that was, it would be equal to 0.25 per cup. So now we only need a quarter of a cup, right? So if I pay 25 cents per cup and I only need a quarter of a cup, that would be 25 cents divided into 4. That will give me a total of 0.0625 cents per each quarter of a cup. So then I add all the results and I see that I am going to need $2.25 for the eggs, 0.625 cents for the milk. That gives me a total of $2.31 cents for the entire meal for 12 clients, and I serve 12 clients, so I divide the total of the entire recipe cost by 12, and it gives me a total of 19 cents, and that's how much each client is costing me to give them scrambled eggs. Now let's talk about recipe formats. You might see that in many websites, there are always different ways of writing a recipe. Some people write down procedure, instructions. Well, you know, there is one and only one way really to write a recipe, and is by standardizing that recipe, right? Majority of times you have the title of the recipe, you have the total time that it needs to be made, and also here they should have also the yield or amount of servings per recipe. That needs to be added here, amount of servings per recipe. Then you have your ingredients, and you should have your ingredients listed in the way, the same order that the instruction calls for. Okay, so if you can see here, the first thing that gets in the instructions, step 1 is break the pita bread in small pieces. So that, and you should have the pita bread listed first in the ingredients and the amount of the ingredients and so on. Now, when you come to the instructions, you know, make sure that you bullet pointed by numbers, step by step, that is clear, right? And it's not convoluted and it's not confusing. You know, every time that you come up with a recipe and you write a recipe, make sure that, again, your ingredients are listed here on top in the order they will be used. And 2, when you do your instructions, write in step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and make sure that it has an order and a sequence where whoever is reading that recipe, whoever is making that recipe, doesn't have any confusion of you know, what I should do first, right? Like example, when you have something that is baked, the first step on the instruction should be to bring the oven up to temperature. So that would be your step 1, you know, turn on the oven and let it heat to 400 degrees, let's say, right? And then step 2 will be perhaps, you know, the mix all the dry ingredients, or, you know, in this case, saute the pita bread, right? Because you want the pita bread to be crispy, and you want to also get it out of the way, because the salad, once you chop and you prepare all the ingredients for the salad, the very last thing that you need to do is dressing it, because if you dress it before you toast the bread, then you will have a soggy salad. Now, let's talk about our meal project, continuing. So, you know, after you do, if you see your template on what I gave you for your meal project, So on your meal project, you're going to have an appendix section. That's going to be the very last section of your entire paper, right? Remember that you're going to have to write a report, and if you follow the template that I provided for you, you will see that all the sections, all your writing sections, and then at the end, you're going to have your tables. So these tables right here is going to be where you're going to do your recipe costing. And this, you're going to have to create one table for each recipe that you're going to be using in your 4 dishes of your meal. Some of you are going to be making 3 dishes, some of you are going to be making 4, depending on how big is your group. If you are 3 members, you're going to be making 3 dishes, right? And if you're going to be, if you're going to be 4, you're going to make 3 dishes plus 1 extra side dish. Okay, so you, if you can see here, you're gonna, in the template that is provided in your document, you'll see here that there is a second row where there is basically all the instructions of what you need to do and you need to follow. Like the ingredients, the name of the ingredients gonna be in that column, how much amount required for recipe is exactly how much does the recipe call for, the market, how much per, how much you pay for each item that you bought, etc. So amount bought, quantity purchased, you buy 1 box, 2 boxes, unit conversion. If you have the price per item, or let's say like the price per box, and if you buy 3 boxes, 4 boxes, 6 boxes, multiply that by the number of units that you bought. Amount used is the amount that you use for your recipe, right? 1/4 of a cup, 2 cups, 3 cups, 5 cups of whatever, or it could be in pounds, 3 pounds, 2 ounces, 22 ounces, 44 ounces, whatever it was. You're gonna go into that column, and finally, you're gonna calculate the cost of what the amount of the ingredient that you used. So when, and this is just, you know, the second column here is only use it as a reference point. But when you formulate your table, you can actually just not write that this list of ingredients. You can definitely skip that, right? Right here, you can use it for your own reference, but you don't need to include it in your table that you are going to submit and present. So here's an example, right? When you finish your table, just do not include this row right here, but you will do the calculations that follows, right? Let's say you bought egg noodles, and each you only need 24 ounces of egg noodles for your recipe, right? Obviously, you're probably not gonna find a 24-ounce package, but you might be able to find a 16-ounce package, and each 16-ounce package will cost you $1.99. So you're gonna have to buy 2 in order to make 24 ounces, right? So it's 32 boxes. A 16-ounce box will be 32 ounces. That's how much you're gonna acquired. I'm sorry. And you're gonna be paying $1.99 for each box. So right here, unit conversion will be $1.99 per box, and you bought 2 boxes. You spend a total of $3.98, right? But that's how much you spent, not how much you used. So because you bought 2 boxes, 16 ounces each, you wound up with 32 ounces. But you're going to use 24 because that's how much it calls for the recipe. So you're going to divide 24 into 32. 24 is how much you are actually using for your recipe, and 32 is how much you have on hand. because you were not able to get a 24-ounce package. If you did wonderful. But if you this is just for this purpose, right? Me showing you. So that will give you a 75% that you use from what you bought. So that will give you a decimal number, 0.75. You will multiply the 0.75 by the amount that you spent, and that will give you 0.75 times 398. It will give you a amount of money that you actually spent for your food, right? So let's say that 0.95, I mean 0.75 times 3.98 is equal to $2.98. So this will be equal to $2.98, which is how much you spent on the egg noodles. Same here. Let's go with the salmon fillet. Salmon fillet calls for 32 ounces, right? And the salmon is going to cost you $5.99 a pound. And 32 ounces is equal to 2 pounds, right? But you want to make sure that you have enough salmon, and you are going to buy 2.5 pounds or 40 ounces. Because remember, we said that we will need to consider the food loss at 30%. $5.99 per pound times 2.5 pounds equals to $14.97, right? So you have 32 ounces divided into 2.5. You're gonna need to convert. You have ounces here, you have pounds here. You cannot do ounces over pounds, so you're gonna have to convert equally, right? You can either do 32 ounces is equal to 2 pounds, and you can do that too, 2 divided 2.5, or you can do 32 ounces into 40 ounces, because you are converting the pounds into ounces, and that will give you a total of 0.8. So you are using 32 ounces out of 40, that only using 80% of what you bought. So when it comes to costing, will be you're using 80% times the total of money that you bought, right? Which is $14.97, and that will give you a total of $11.97. That would be your how much money you spend on the portions of salmon, because remember, you are giving them cooked weight, right? Cooked weight, and so that is going to be the final cost per portion on the salmon. Flour, another example, 1 cup, right? And it's equal, I mean, or for 1 cup, I took a cup, I weigh it, let's say that it gave me 4 ounces and a quarter. Same procedure. I have to buy a 2-pound bag because there are no 1-pound bag available. So I paid $3.99 for the 2-pound bag, and 2 pounds is equal to 32 ounces. So I bought 2 pounds, right? 1 2-pounder, and it gave me equal to $3.99. But out of those 32 ounces, I only need 4.25, because 4 ounces and a quarter is equal to 4.25 ounces. And so I'm going to divide that into the 32 ounces that the bag or the amount of flour that I obtain, and that is equal to 13%. So I'm only using 30% of that 2-pound bag. If it costs me $3.99 and I'm only using 30%, then the price of flour that I'm using for my recipe is the cost, I'm sorry, is 0.52. Now, for small items that we're going to be providing you in the lab, remember, like spices, dry herbs, um, that is going to, you are going to find a cost for the item, right? But when it comes down to the final cost of the ingredient, you're gonna write down lab gratis, meaning you got it for free. All right, gratis, that it was complimentary from Lehman to you. So that doesn't mean that you are not gonna do the calculations and conversions, but it just means that you're gonna be saving some money in for your project, and then you don't need to add that to the final cost in your your budget that is allowed per person for your final project. Okay. Now another table that is going to be there is the total recipe cost. So you're going to take all the 4 recipes, you're going to write down the total recipe cost here, and also you're going to divide that into 4, which would be your total cost per serving. Right? That is how much you are going to spend per person. Now, calculating nutrients. Please refer to this table. You should probably know this by now, that 1 gram of fat is equal to 9 calories, carbohydrates 4 calories, protein 4 calories, and alcohol 7 calories, right? So when you come to do your recipe nutrient analysis, you will do per recipe. So if you're cooking 4 dishes, you will be doing four recipe nutrient analysis. And if you're cooking for 3 dishes, then you will be doing 3. You will write down the name of the recipe, the name, amount of servings, and then you will do your nutrient analysis. So if you see that in your recipe you have 27 calories per serving, that's equal to 3 grams. And calories per grams, as we saw before on fat, is 9 calories. So you will say that only 3 grams of fat are in your recipe, and you will go and find what is the daily value for fat. In this case, the daily value for fat is 78 grams, and your recipe only had 3. You will divide 3 into 78, and that will give you the percentage of nutrients that you have in your of your macronutrients. Also, please include, right, in your other and create more rows if you need to, of any macro and micronutrients you feel is important to note in for your dishes. Okay. Also, to this, you are going to add a screenshot of your calculating nutrients. All right. And please do not put it in a different document. All you need to find out is how to make a snapshot out of your document. At least I have a Mac, and I know that if I press Shift Command and 4, it will give me this tool, right? And I can clip this, and it will give me a screenshot of that of what I need to post. So I can just copy this, right? And then paste it into my Word document. It is nothing really so complicated about this. It is, if you know how to look for certain things in the internet, you can definitely find how to do a screenshot and add it to your document. Please, for this should be for everything and every lab and every report and everything else that you are going to present for the rest of the semester. So these are, I gave you a few websites or some free recipe analysis tools. Please use them, or if you have your own, just make sure that you cite all those resources, right? APA citations are needed in text and at the end of your document as a reference citation. Okay, I think we already, oh yes, one more thing. So fiber has no calories, right? And also does not sodium. So make sure that you just note that and make sure that you do have stipulated how many grams of each micro and macronutrient are there, and you need to add that on. So at the very end, also you need to give me a complete summary of the recipes, right, as a table where you will have the name of the recipes on one column, the calories per serving, percent of daily intake for each recipe, how much sodium, how much fiber, and if also create more columns as you need them. If you need to add sugar, if you need to add anything else that you feel is relevant. It's your report. Be creative. More components might help rather than skipping stuff. So it's your work, and I am hoping that you will all this is clear. If you have any questions, please reach out. I have office hours. It's better than an office hours that you ask me questions in the middle of the lab where I am trying to concentrate on other students and yourself, or making sure everybody is doing the right thing and nobody's burning each other, or cutting their hands, or etc. So please schedule a appointment individually, or even as a group. If you don't understand something, just get me on my office hours, and I noted that in the syllabus. Please refer to that, and I ask you to please schedule that at least 48 hours in advance, so I know and I can plan accordingly my time and give you the best attention I can. Again, thank you so much, and I hope this explains a little more clear what you need to do for your recipe conversion, your cost analysis, your nutrient analysis, and good luck with your final paper. Remember that you will have to come to the lab and execute those exact recipes and make a meal for a family of 4 on the date that you are assigned. Again, good luck for the rest of the semester, and thank you again. Have a great rest of the semester. I'll see you at the end.